Thanks, what a turnout. This is not helping my nerves, having a room full of people. No, it'd be worse if there was hardly anybody here. So a couple of years ago, my husband and I took a Mediterranean cruise, which was wonderful. And one of the stops was Ephesus, Turkey. I don't know if anyone's been to Turkey, but it's incredible. I wasn't expecting to like Turkey as well as I did, but yeah, it's incredible. So in Ephesus, they have the original amphitheaters that were, this is pretty much where theater began there in Greece, the traditional amphitheaters. So it was, of course, full of tourists, and everyone has read in their guidebooks that if you stand center stage, where most soliloquies were delivered, there's kind of a sweet spot acoustically. So literally everyone was kind of lining up to say whatever. Usually when people hit center stage, they went, hello, hello. And their people are up on the stands and they're testing to see if it actually really does sound great, and it does. So I waited my turn, and when I got center stage, I cleared my throat, and in my hopefully my clearest voice possible, I said, congratulations, you have successfully installed the Asterisk open source PBX. And people were kind of looking around going, what's happening? Where's that coming from? So even on vacation, I geek out and I can't help, thinking about IVR. So this talk is called The New Rules of IVR. Listen, I love recording IVR. Other voice talent don't understand it, but I actually really, really love the whole aspect of welcoming callers into a call queue. And when it's done well, it's glorious. Unfortunately, there are many, many times where people are just sort of replicating systems that they hear. They're repeating mistakes and just sort of getting it done and getting it over with just so they can have something up and running on their system. So I'm seeing a big evolution of IVR improving. It's not quite there yet, but it is getting there. So just sort of a side story, last weekend I took a voiceover workshop that was taught by a really legendary vocal coach, Maurice Tobias from Los Angeles. She's about 4'11" and she's terrifying. She's all blinged out, she wears capes. And she knows more about voiceover than anybody in the world, probably. And even though I have this specialty in IVR, there's lots of other voice talent that were there who do e-learning modules, and a lot of people do broadcast, as I do as well. But we decided that it's okay for me to have this specialty and this niche in IVR. And in fact, many of the other voice talent were kind of envious of this, especially Asterisk, when they heard about how I'm linked to this incredible community and I have all this recurring work. But there was, and I do encounter a few colleagues that say, oh, how do you record IVR, especially all those numbers? Doesn't it get monotonous? And to me, it's a meditation. I really, really enjoy keeping things consistent to make sure that they concatenate well together. To me, it's my bliss, and that's why it's my specialty. As I said in the workshop, dermatologists don't say, gee, I wish I was also operating on hearts. They're okay with having that specialty, and I am too. I really love it, even though I've learned that most of my colleagues kind of dread doing it. So imagine a scenario where you invite someone into your house, and instead of just, opening the door and inviting them in, you try to make it as difficult as possible for them to get comfortable and get settled. What if you had said, everyone who's known me in excess of 20 years, go straight to the kitchen where all the food is. People who have known me 10 years or less, please go to the dining room and await further instructions. And other people who haven't known me all that long, please stay on the front porch, and we'll get to you as soon as we can. Your patience is appreciated. You wouldn't do that on a hospitality thing, and you also wouldn't say, everybody with white shoes, move off to the left as soon as you get in the door. People with red shoes, move off to the right, and other colors, move ahead. You wouldn't make it as difficult as possible for people to get comfortable. And yet that's kind of what IVR is thought to be, is a way of sorting people, and it is. But some people kind of take that to an extreme. So with the rules of IVR, I'm encouraging you to pretty much forget everything. Now the schemagram, which helps you to get organized and helps you to figure out exactly what prompts belong where, it's sort of a necessary evil, although I've seen many, many IVR projects get stalled, sidetracked, or even abandoned because people are too daunted by what I refer to as the Corleone family tree. It's, it's way too complicated. That actually came to me by Matt Florell of Vici Dial. This was an actual schemagram, that was sent to them. It's too complicated. Do it so that you can get organized, but don't allow that to kind of overtake the whole process, because as I say, it sort of gets in the way. So forget that. You know all the platitudes that callers hear all the time? Your time is important to us. Oh, sorry, yeah, driving directions. That's another thing that I kind of want to see pretty much go the way of the dinosaur. Here's what I meant about, platitudes. Callers, especially on hold, will hear this time and time again about how precious their time is and how much you respect their time. Obviously you don't if they're waiting a great deal on time. So I kind of want to see that go by the wayside as well. Great, big, long, complicated menus. For those who are not sure if they need to open a trouble ticket, press 11. First of all, too many choices, and it's absolutely too much for people to listen to and to retain as well. So that's gone. It is gone, and it is like super gone. So we don't want to see any of that anymore. IVR has a really, really, really bad reputation. You know, when you're at a cocktail party or a social situation, everyone says, oh, so what line of work are you in? And when I explain what I do, people are really, really divided. They go, oh my gosh, so you're that voice on the telephone system. But many, many people say, oh, you voice those systems? I hate those. I run into people all the time who say that being on hold and convoluting, sort of getting your way through a convoluted telephone system is pure torture. So the public's perception is IVR does nothing but wastes your time. Its sole purpose is to keep you away from actual humans. And probably the most key thing is that the public believes that the IVR is for the company's use, not for their own convenience, when really it's a bit of both. It is about making the caller get to the solution as quickly as possible. So I quoted this stat on Twitter the morning that I found it online, and it actually generated a lot of discussion. So 37% of respondents said that they might decide to stop doing business with your company after a first or a single bad IVR experience. That's significant. That's like a restaurant that only has one shot at winning your approval and get your recurring business. So let's drill deeper about the public perceptions of IVR. So it wastes your time. People are sick of navigating long menus, needlessly complicated menus, convoluted instructions. It's amazing how difficult many companies make it for callers to actually arrive at a solution. This is a personal pet peeve of mine, a commercial in an opening greeting. So I did an IVR for some sort of tool manufacturing company, I think out of Ohio, and their opening greeting was, you've called XYZ company, we've been in business for such and such a time, and this is why we do things differently, and this is why you're so smart to have called us. Their opening greeting, I clocked it. It came in at about 2 minutes. This is before people even got to a menu. It's astounding. So redundant or repetitive requests. My own bank, Royal Bank of Canada, they're all horrible, but my bank asks for my PIN number 3 different times in a typical phone call. I understand security checks and all that, but I think it's really, really too much to ask for people to input the same information over and over again. Basically asking people to jump through too many hoops. So aspect B, people think that the sole purpose of IVR is to keep you away from actual humans. People do like turnkey, but IVRs have become turnkey to the point of putting people in Siberia. It sends the message from the part of the company of, we're impersonal because you, the caller, want it that way. It actually conveys an essence of being elitist. People get the impression from a company in which they have to drill very deep into their IVR that they only let people with real problems speak to an actual agent. And it also sends a very strong message that the company does not tolerate late adopters, the technologically challenged, or the elderly, which sort of fall by the wayside, unfortunately, with most IVRs. So aspect number C, IVR is for the company's use and not for the callers. Callers kind of have the feeling that IVR cannot be for making their life easier. It's designed solely for the company's business processes, not for handling the caller's issue easily or effectively. And they're left with the impression, unfortunately, that if they want their issue dealt with, they've got to do the work. So don't get me wrong, people actually really do want self-service. It's extremely important, especially for the younger demographic, that they are able to sort things through. Think of your own experiences while navigating through a phone system. You would rather arrive at a solution yourself as opposed to having to explain your problem to an agent or, God forbid, multiple agents, because sometimes you do get transferred and you have to start from the ground up. However, sorry, something weird happened with my font on this slide. Callers have little tolerance for wading through menu mazes, and in fact, 40% will transfer to an agent if there is not a first level menu choice that matches why they're calling. So here's the deal. The number one reason people despise IVR, and they do despise it, is the reason they're calling about is not on the menu, plain and simple. How many times have you been listening to instructions going, well, what I'm calling about is a little bit about choice number one, but it's really kind of more about choice number two. It's, you make a choice and you hope it's not the wrong one. So to remedy that, rule number one should be to use analytics to determine your most popular or often used choices and front stack those. It's really key. I always tell the story of voicing an IVR for a cardiology clinic in Florida, and they had far too many choices. They had probably 11 or 12 choices. And the very last one was, if this is a medical emergency, hang up and dial 911. So, yes, if there's anything that deals with kind of emergency situations, even technical support, try to determine which choices are the most often or most inclined to be used and front stack those. The number two reason that people despise IVR, they often have to repeat the same info to an agent once they transfer. So yeah, everyone's nodding. Yeah, we've all been in that situation where you've just had to start from ground zero and start again and explain exactly why it is you're calling. So to remedy that, I always encourage people to make sure that agents are aware of exactly where the customer is in the process through notation, and try to make sure that they don't ask for repetitive or redundant things or do too many handoffs to other agents. Okay, so the number three reason why people despise IVR is they're overwhelmed by too many options. Now, people always ask me, what is the magic number of how many options you should reasonably ask people to navigate through? There's data about very, very different strategies and different numbers. I always say limit the amount of choices probably to, I don't know, five or six in the opening greeting. If you ask them to drill down deeper, maybe in a sub-menu, go to 3. So keep the menu as short as possible, using the most popular, often used choices first. And for bonus points, limit subdirectories to 3 choices. And forget about subdirectories. I have done systems where it's one level of IVR, then they force them to go into a bit more detail with a subdirectory and go even deeper, drilling deeper. It's crazy. That's sort of abusing people's patience. By the way, do you remember that convoluted, great big long prompt that I had at the beginning? Does anyone else see the problem with having a double-digit DTMF key press? Anybody? Yeah, what's going to go on? Yeah, exactly. And how would that be remedied? A lot of systems have press 1 pound, and that pound indicates the end of the selection. So yeah, I've had many companies that go, everything's getting routed to sales, and we can't figure out why. Well, because everything's going to number one. It seems really basic, but yeah. So I'm enlisting, hopefully inspiring you who are, either reselling or implementing Asterisk systems and installing them. You might actually be put in the position of recording them or handing them off to clients who will find someone local to record it, or best case scenario, get a pro to do it. You are kind of on the front lines of IVR and the way it's designed, so I'm hoping that I will inspire you to clean up the bad habits. As I've been sort of mentioning a few times, economize on the choices, narrow it down to the top 5 choices in the first layer of the IVR, simplify, and eliminate steps. Don't make it impossible for people to either arrive at a solution by themselves or logically get patched through to an actual live person. Many people are afraid to offer a live agent option because they fear that it will be abused. I keep telling people it won't happen. People really love sorting things out for themselves, but always make a live agent accessible to them. Get callers to a solution or an agent as quickly as possible with minimal handoffs. It seems very, very basic, but that's what I'd recommend. You can take it even further. You can improve IVR. Use IVR to establish the identity and the personality of the company. So quite often when I begin a project to record for a client, I will ask them, what sort of mood or feel are you trying to establish with this system? And sometimes that question is met with, stunned silence and people saying, wow, we hadn't really even given that any thought. So they should. I mean, companies give a great deal of thought as to what image that their website projects and any other sort of advertising. The phone system really is your front door and should reflect exactly who you are. That can drive your choice of voice talent, or if your voice talent is versatile, you can let them know that, yeah, we're kind of a casual company. We don't want to sound like a regular phone system, which seems to be the trend these days. There's really a good movement, and I'm very happy to see it, towards a more conversational style as opposed to the old style automaton kind of voice. Use IVR to reinforce their decision that they're calling the right place and that they are going to be a good fit with your company. Use IVR to build their trust, and think of IVR as a way of mirroring your business practices across the board. If they're frustrated in dealing with your IVR, it sets the tone. And remember, probably about 40% of them are going to bail after one single bad IVR experience. So, wow, I'm finishing early. So in conclusion, IVR not only should not confuse, aggravate, or dehumanize. I basically feel very, very strongly that IVR should facilitate, educate, improve the caller experience, and improve your bottom line. So getting back to the initial scenario of welcoming people into your house, keep that visual in mind, and always bear in mind that when people are coming to visit your house, you don't make it any harder for them to get comfortable and to settle in, and it should be the same thing. Too many people view their IVR as an onerous thing that needs to just be written and recorded by somebody local and just, get it over with. And yet, it should dovetail with your company's image. So, at this point, I would love to field any questions that you may have about either writing IVR, the recording of it, anything at all. Wow, I tried to slow that down.
That's right. I will do the mic running, I think, if at all possible, because I'm going to be running the mic back and forth between Allison and here. If I can maybe get people to somewhat queue in the middle, if that's okay, because then I don't have to literally run all over the place. So, so I will say before I forget, if everyone can fill out their forms so we can get some awesome feedback. And it's also great that I learned a lot of things in your talk in terms of reminding us that sometimes the technology isn't we get so focused on the technology that sometimes we forget that every single customer that is coming to our business is listening to this, and that it is such a simple thing that we could probably fix in a day, that someone's experience with our company could become so much more enhanced. So thank you for all that information. So.
Yeah, Matt says hi. In your experience in research and everything, I've always heard that regardless of how you lay out the IVR, what you say, what you do, how you prompt it, there's always going to be a large group of people that just hit the first option they hear regardless of what it is. And my question is that true? Is that what you see? And do you have any recommendations on preventing that? So that way everybody doesn't show up their sales with an accounting question.
Yeah. I have to be really honest. I have maybe a handful of clients that will let me know how the IVR is functioning after I've recorded it. And I always appreciate hearing about that. And some people will comment on that regardless of the choices. A lot of people are just going to hammer that first choice just to, cut down time. You need to really, really remind yourself that people are extremely rushed, extremely stressed, and don't have all day to spend on the phone. So to answer your question, I wish I had more indication from clients exactly how the IVR plays out. But I can tell you that keeping the choices as short as possible is a big help, and front stacking probably the most likely choices that people are going to choose. Put those at the very, very front. But there's many ways to track analytics of exactly where you lose callers, where they drop off, where they die in the process, and when they initially hang up. So it would be a good thing to track that and to try to determine where you're losing people if you are. Yeah.
So when we're building our IVRs and we're building our call flows and our wordings and things like that for submission to you, what are things that I should be focusing on in terms of either the types of wording, the length of the prompt, and things like that, that not only if I'm getting all of these things right, maybe the wording is awkward, or maybe should I be putting the, press 1 and then the information, or vice versa? So what are some tips for when I'm submitting my information to you for recording?
I'm so glad you asked. So yeah, yours is kind of a multi-part question. So I'll answer the last part first. With regards to whether or not you should say press 1 for accounting or for accounting press 1, people are really split about that. There's studies that sort of support that people will remember the instruction better if it's at the end. Others firmly believe that people need to have the instruction or the call to action first and then the department. Personally, I seem to like to hear for accounting, press 1, it just sort of drives me to do it. Yeah. You hover all over the keyboard, yeah. And to address the first part of your fantastic question is read your script out loud. A lot of people will not do that. They'll just hammer out a script in visual form, look it over. Yeah, it's all grammatical, everything's great, spell check's not, angry. Let's submit it to Allison. When really, if you just found a quiet boardroom at work and you read it out loud, you would encounter all sorts of extremely strange phrasings that don't come out visually and only come out after you hear the spoken word. I do a few redos a week from people that go, oh, I'm so sorry, we're going to have to rewrite this. We had no idea how scattered it was until we heard you read it. I don't know if I should take that personally. Things sound terrible after you read it. No. So I encourage people to maybe pass it through another set of eyes if you can get someone else to read it over, but read it out loud. I know it sounds crazy. You're going to feel like a nut, but it will catch a lot of things that you missed previously. Yeah. Does that answer your questions? Yeah. Excellent. Length, yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I don't think there's any magic answer. It's, again, me reiterating, just keep it simple and keep it short and just acknowledge that people's attention spans are way, way shorter than you think they are. Think about your own attention span. I actually spent probably the better part of an hour on the phone with, I'm not going to say who they are because I've actually done recording with them, only to find out that they don't service the attachment to the popular kitchen aid that I was using. So yeah, that was an hour out of my life, only to find out that no, we actually don't deal with any pasta issues with that thing. So it's frustrating. Even I encounter pretty bad systems, so no one's immune. Any other questions? Yeah. Yeah. Right. Yeah. Yeah. So you're asking. Right. Yeah. So I think. Right. So you're asking about more like a speech recognition thing, right? Have you noticed more problems with speech recognition on a speakerphone or with a cell phone? Or is that the essence of what you're asking? Or? Yes. Right. Yeah. Right. Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. Yeah, they are, or they'll do a combination of DTMF or speech rec. Yeah, it'll be like, say or press one, whatever works better for that. Yeah. I'm sure there are people here at AstriCon that probably, that's more in their wheelhouse. I do notice that sometimes, especially on a cell phone, your response will be somewhat lopped off. There's a little bit of a cutoff or a delay. So I don't know who would be, possibly Ben Klang of Mojo Lingo, because he does a lot of ASR stuff. Yeah, exactly. They might be biased. Yeah, any of those guys for which that's their passion. I kind of do. Yeah, yeah. Yeah, and I've voiced the hugely popular Capstrol Allison voice. I think Patrick's here somewhere. Where's Patrick? Or he was. Yeah, so that seems to be implemented in a lot of uses. A lot of uses that come back to bite me. I've ordered hotel wake-up calls, and it's been me waking me up. The other story that I tell about my hubby over there, he downloaded the workout coach for BlackBerry. It's called Endomondo, and it's like a coach that keeps you motivated at the gym. And the first time he used it, he said, "Guess who's the voice of Endomondo?" And he got rid of it. He's using the Australian mail now because he saw it as nagging instead of encouraging. So, yeah, yeah. Oh, there's another one way over there. Start running, love.
Do you have any specific suggestions when you want to give information on a menu, as opposed to just, as a navigating to get them to where they want to be? You want to, frequently ask questions and how to handle that in your IVRs.
Does anyone remember that? So yes, what you're asking about is background information about a company or frequently asked questions. And I usually try to urge people, rather than put it again in their opening message, which a lot of people want to do, put it in your on-hold system. If people have to wait on hold, they might as well learn why your widgets are the best on the Eastern Seaboard, blah, blah, blah. Same with frequently asked questions. One thing that people probably should keep in mind, though, is by the time people call a company, they have already been to their website, and maybe that's not true for everybody, but for myself, calling is almost like the last resort. So chances are they're already kind of familiar with the FAQs on the website, but it has its place in an IVR, obviously not in an auto attendant, like in an opening greeting. On-hold systems, I would say, are probably the best. A lot of people produce web tutorials about their company, kind of like little mini commercials on YouTube. That's a great venue to educate people about what makes your company different from others. But do not put them in your opening greeting, as many, many people want to do. Yeah. Does that answer your question? Hopefully. Yeah. Okay. Oh.
So we got time for one more, actually. So.
All right, great session. In case where you have multiple languages, would you rather prefer analysts and do all languages, or you look for people that would do? Because in Nigeria, for instance, we have over 250 languages with more than 1,000 dialects, and we just developed an IVR payment system. So what would you prefer? Is it?
You know, had I known that I was going to get into this industry when I was little, I would have learned like multiple languages. And even though I'm Canadian, I don't even speak French because it's just not widely spoken in Western Canada. So English, of course, a little bit of Spanish. I call it Spanglish because it's just sort of like basic, yay! It's just sort of basic bilingual requirement Spanish that I speak. I'm kind of like an opera singer that sings in different languages but really doesn't know what she's doing. So I can handle that. But as for other languages, I wish I could actually voice in a bunch of different languages. So how a lot of people get around, particularly people that want English and French, is to get me to do English and then pair it with a French-speaking male. That is easier to listen to than two different females doing the same thing, different languages. So I would recommend getting local talent that is familiar in your various dialects. I had no idea there were so many. But every time I come here, I hear from the Swedes who say, learn Swedish, and everybody from different nations wants me to do their prompts, and it's great. I wish I could. Yeah. Anything else? Such good questions. All righty. Thank you so much, everybody.